I am Matthew Jenkins Yarashevitz, Music Director Designate of the Canton Symphony Orchestra.
And I'm Rachel Hagemeyer, President and CEO.
This is Orchestrating Change. Today, we are delighted to be joined in person by operatic baritone Brian Keith Johnson. Brian has performed regularly with the Canton Symphony Orchestra throughout his career, most recently as Coalhouse Walker Jr. in last summer's concert presentation of the musical Ragtime. He also appeared on Gerhardt Zimmermann's final concert in April of 2023, singing Dvorak's Te Deum and the Catalogue Aria from Mozart's Don Giovanni. He has also appeared with the orchestras of Cleveland, Charlotte, and Akron, and has performed with opera companies throughout the region. Brian received his Bachelor of Music degree from the University of Akron and also studied voice at the New Opera Academy of Rome and the American Institute of Musical Studies in Austria. In addition to his performing career, Brian taught vocal music in the Akron Public School system for 34 and a half years before retiring last spring. Brian Keith Johnson, welcome to Orchestrating Change.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Brian, we've gotten to know you a little bit, and we're so happy to have you today. If you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about kind of how you grew up, how music became a part of your life, all that good stuff.
Okay. I'm Brian Keith Johnson. I grew up in Warren, Ohio, a very small steel town back in the day. And I come from two education parents. My father was a history teacher and became a principal, so he was a principal as long as I've been alive. And then my mom was a music teacher, so I come by education honestly. And when my mom taught general music, she would bring home all kinds of instruments, and I would play every instrument. And she also had me start piano at age 4. So I played in church, accompanied the children's church choir, which is the kids program. So I'd been playing before I'd been singing. And then I just grew up in that educational household. I played a lot of sports because my dad was a great athlete in high school. But it was always time for music and always had to take time out to practice piano lessons, a half an hour a day. So I grew up in a very musical family. I have a younger brother who played trombone in high school. He does not pursue music anymore, but at the time we were all doing music somehow. And one of the greatest performances I ever had was when my dad sang with me on a concert when I was getting ready to go to Graz, Austria, the Ames program. My tenor partner and I did a series of concerts where we helped raise money to help defray the costs, and my dad and I sang 2 father-son duets, the song from No More from Into the Woods, and then we sang My Own from Maury Yeston's Phantom. So those are some of my greatest performing memories.
Wow.
That is amazing. So I'm curious, you have had a prolific career both as a performer and as an educator, a public school educator. So how did both of those, what inspired you to do both of those things? You weren't going to just be a performer and you weren't just going to teach in schools. How did you get onto the track to do both of those things?
Well, when I got a senior in high school, there was a program back in the 80s called the Inroads program, and it was for talented minority students to make inroads into companies where minorities hadn't normally been. It was electrical engineering, accounting, marketing, and physical therapy. So I was one of the top students, African Americans, in my class. I got in that program, and we made, and this is 84, we made like $4,500 working at Packard Electric was what I worked at, a big GM company, and we made that in 3 months. And back in 84, $4,500 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
That paid for my whole first year of college, including room and board. So I got into that program, and I said, well, I can always sing if I want to. But 2 summers of being in the business world, I realized that I could not do this for 35 years. I just couldn't do it. There was so much more going on in the world, like the Olympics, and nobody ever talked about the Olympics. It was always come in, have your calculator, look at the clock, and people just watch the clock the whole time. And I said, I can't do this. There's more to life than just the clock and making money. So I was halfway through an accounting degree, 2.5 years through, doing very well, but it was not my passion. And I realized that I love singing, I love doing music, I love playing, and somehow I had to get back into that. So when just for kicks and giggles, I went over I said, I'm going to get in the choir. And so I was like, okay, let's do that. So I went over and they had me audition for the opera director, and I sang one of my 24 Italian songs and sonatas from high school contests because I went every year. And he said, my goodness, that's really great, and that's Italian. And I said, he goes, your Italian is very good. And I said, well, thank you very much. I work very hard. My mom's a music teacher. And he said, well, do you play any instruments? I said, sure. And he says, what do you play? I said, different keyboards and percussion. I was a percussionist in high school because I could tune the temps. I played all the mallet instruments, all the chimes, anything with a keyboard. I played marimba, xylophone, temp, but I love playing temp the most because, people say, well, you're a percussionist or you're a timpanist, because I've met people who say, no, they are exclusively a timpanist. Not just a percussionist. Difference.
The timpanist of the Canton Symphony is very particular about being a timpanist.
Yes, and he's also with the Akron Symphony, so I see him all the time. I say, no, I'm a timpanist.
Yes.
And if somebody moves a timpani out of place or something, that's an issue. I realized that very quickly. So I played all these instruments. He goes, well, can you play piano? I said, sure. And I'm thinking that this is the music school. I'm in my third year of college. Everybody plays piano because I'm thinking it's like Fame, the movie Fame. So everybody does everything. Everybody can dance. Everybody can sing. Everybody can play. Everybody can do everything. So he says, well, what can you play? I said, what do you want me to play? He said, can you play your accompaniment to the Gio Sole del Gange? I said, sure. So I started playing the accompaniment to my piece, and he goes, wow, I got to take, this was first Tana Alexander. Then she took me over to the opera director, Alfred Anderson. And then he said, well, can you sight read? I said, sure. And he said, well, and I'm thinking everybody does this. So this is the music school. It's like Fame. So everybody's like brilliant musicians. I'm just coming in 3 years late. So he said, can you sight read this? I said, yes. Because can you sight read it on solfege? And I said, yes. And he was like, oh my gosh, well, we can get you $500 scholarship this semester. And the semester had already started. We can get you $500 a semester for a music scholarship, and then after that, we can go $1,000 a year once you become officially in the music school. And I was like, you're going to pay me to go to school, and just from this 10-minute audition? They go, oh yes, and we'll get you involved in the opera program. And I said, hey, sounds like fun. As long as I'm singing, I'm happy. So I went on to the opera workshop program, and I ended up being like the only underclassman in all the graduate scenes. And that was kind of cool. And they said, well, who's this golden boy? He just come out of here out of nowhere. He's an accounting major, and he comes over and takes all the opera roles. And I was like, no. I'm just coming in to try and do my part. I'm 3 years behind. I got to catch up and do everything else. So it was a lot of fun. And then I realized at home in my hometown, there was called the Francis Lully M Scholarship. I could audition for scholarships there, and that was $2,500 a year every year. So like back in '84, $4,000 paid everything. So I had $2,500 from the Lulu Scholarship, which was renewable every year. I ended up getting $1,500 from the music department, $1,000, and then $500 for performing. And then I had a $500 academic scholarship because I had good grades in accounting. So I just realized that I can pay for school. I was thinking, I'm not a scholarship athlete. I can't play football like that. But you can have a scholarship and not be an athlete. And that was groundbreaking to me. I was so excited.
Oh my
Amazing. Gosh. So that sort of takes us to how your operatic career took off. And then how about high school teaching in Akron Public Schools? How did that come about?
I always wanted to be a teacher. And when I became a music major, my parents were like, well, you're not going to be able to get a job performing all the time. You have to have an education degree like we do. So I was never thinking about performing the full time anywhere, all that travel. I was always going to be a teacher because I love teaching. And I was like, my ACT scores in math were 32, so they thought I was going to be a math teacher. But music, they said, well, you're more prolific in music. So I actually tried to do math and music after accounting. I tried to double major, which was crazy. I was taking 27 hours a semester because I still had to catch up with my classes. And I got through the first 2 calcs, and then Calc 3, my brain could not process that and still be in rehearsals every night for opera until 10 o'clock. And I said, I have to have no time to do my homework. So I ended up dropping the math when I was 2 classes short, and I didn't realize that until I came back several years later. I had to take linear algebra and differential equations, and then I would have had a math certification. I could teach math. And then by the time I came back, I said, I only had 2 classes to take. Then it was 10 classes. So I said, no.
You're like, no.
Yeah.
But I love teaching high school. I love teaching elementary school because my mom taught elementary and my dad was a high school principal. So I figured that was a natural thing. I'd go watch them in the classroom. I'd watch my dad in the office. And I said, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And I tried all kinds of things. And it was just really great. So it was never a question of me not teaching. It might have been a question of maybe not singing, professionally, but I was always going to be in Akron Symphony Chorus or Canton Symphony. I was going to be singing somehow or get a church job. When I had a church job for 15 years, I was first of all the baritone soloist, and then I was the choir director, and then we didn't have a piano, so I had to play organ, and you had to go in on Thursday nights when nobody else was in the church and practice the organ, and, there's always a mirror so you can see the congregation. So it was spooky in that old church. I did not like practicing the organ, so until we hired an organist, and I was like, thank you, Jesus, because I did not have to play the organ. And I was not great on pedals. I was never trained on the organ.
It's a lot.
I would play all the manuals, and then I would do like 1, 4, and 5 on the pedal. That's all I can do is just to get through these hymns, 3 hymns a Sunday, play through the anthem. But it was, I look back because that's the same area, that church, North United Methodist Church, is the same area I've taught for the last 30 years. It's right around the corner from Finley CLC, my elementary school.
So in your 34, almost 35 years of teaching, I'm assuming, as many things do change, a lot has changed.
Yes.
In education. And you've done elementary, a little bit of middle, and high school. So I know that's a very broad question, but what have you seen as the biggest educational change in your time as being a teacher?
The biggest change is really two things. The first thing is the advent of social media and how that affects kids and adults. And we've seen so many things that become legal issues because of cyberbullying. And when I was in school, there would never be anything like that. Because back in the day when you got in a fight, I grew up in a neighborhood which was predominantly black, but then we moved to the all-white neighborhood where my brother and I were the only people of color in the entire school and the principal. So that's the first time I prolifically heard the N-word all the time, and the principal. And my dad was a principal, so he knew that principal. So it was my brother and I were the only 2 black people in the school and the principal. So I heard the N-word all the time. I got in several fights until they realized that I could fight. And I was a big, probably 3 or 4 fights. And then they said, well, we're not going to mess with Brian because Brian's rough, but we'll mess with his little brother. My brother's considerably smaller than I was. And my dad was always like, never start a fight, but don't anybody put their hands on you. You take care of business. You finish it, and then there will not be a problem. You're not going to initiate any fight. So they called me the N-word, the F-word, all kinds of things. I just let it bounce off and go. But when they mess with my brother, then that was a problem. But then it was like honor amongst fighting. We're going to meet after school on the playground. It's going to be a big circle of people, and then we're going to fight. And then when one person gives up, that's it. And it's just fists. That's all that happened. So I got in a lot of fights back then, and that's how it'd be a 5-minute fight and that'd be over. We'd go home, next day, come back to school, that was it. But nowadays, the things that are on social media, and it's just very frightening, which I never would have imagined, 40 years ago. And the cyberbullying, and I said 2 things. So the second big thing is the more mental health and social emotional health issues, not just for students, but for educators. I've known more people on medications for depression and anxiety than I've ever seen. And the thing is, people talk about it. And I've had to deal with some of this myself, so I'm not, preaching to the choir. I'm speaking because I know, and it just happened in the last couple of years. I had to deal with some things, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I always considered, well, you can't talk to anybody. That's private. If I can't talk to my wife about it, then I'm not going to talk to anybody about it. But I learned that, my wife is always my wife, my number one fan, my number one support, my heart. But she's not a professional therapist. So there are things that come in that we can talk about, but I need to go get some help from someone else. And I think it's still a stigma, not as much now, but it used to be a big stigma for men in mental health, and particularly African-American men in mental health. First of all, it was a big thing. African-American men didn't go to the doctor. We just didn't go to the doctor. The Johnson family was like the black family of Warren, Ohio. We were the first family to move into the all-white neighborhood. My dad was the first black assistant principal, the first black principal. So there was a lot of pressure on us as kids, but they always say, the principal's kid is the worst kid. So I was terrible, and my brother was the valedictorian. So one of us had to be bad. So that I took that on, not proudly, but I did take it on. But I look today and I see the things that are put on social media. And when you have a third grader who feels he has to commit suicide because he's being bullied, so the cyberbullying and the mental and emotional issues are very troubling this day. And I don't know if there is a solution, but I just think one thing that we could do is have a mandatory late start day, at least at every school, and have a yoga class for everyone, or what yoga could be one of the offerings. Then, self-defense thing or just basic defense thing could be another thing. And then, it could be a cooking thing or something that has nothing to do with education. But we got 3 choices every week. We have a late start. We don't start until 11 that day. You can go to whatever thing you want. And at any point in those 3 things, you can talk about what's really going on with you. Or a fourth one could be, hey, I'm having trouble. I want to talk to my colleagues. I want to talk to somebody else before I go the professional route. Let me see what my colleagues, because maybe I'm not the only one going through this. Maybe somebody else is afraid of this. Maybe somebody else has something crazy going at home. Maybe somebody else has a suicidal kid in their classroom. What can we do to help and not get sued? And everything is about don't get sued, don't get sued, don't get sued. But you got to be there for the kids. I mean, we don't teach music, art, and gym. We teach kids. And I say you have to be there, and the kids have to know that you love them and you care for them and that you're worried about their safety and that you go to things that they do outside of school. And that's why, I'm very popular with a lot of my elementary and high school kids, because they said, well, I'm playing a football game, and I said, when is it? Okay, I'll be there. And you show up at a kid's football game, on a Pee Wee game, and they're like, Mr. Johnson came to my football game. I didn't score, but he was there. And same thing with the little cheerleaders, for the Pee Wee. They say, Mr. Johnson, you actually came to the game. I said, and have you ever known me not to say something that I was going to do? If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. That's been true the whole time. Yeah. And the kids know that they can trust you. If I'm going to go to their football game or see the cheerleader or go to their church, they have a solo in church, or a different ethnicity and a different religion, go support them somewhere as a Muslim class or a Muslim ceremony. And that's huge. And that's not only huge with the kids, that's huge with the parents, because the parents say, he didn't have to come here. It's Saturday. He's off the clock. And those kind of things are what I think I've always done, and I think we need to do. And one of my big things was motorcycle visits. We were in COVID. I have
Yeah, you got a motorcycle.
Yes, I have several motorcycles.
I saw that in your bio. You're an avid motorcycle enthusiast.
So I had some health issues where I didn't have to come into school because COVID could kill me with my condition. So my wife didn't have to go into school either. So we both taught at home for a year. And I felt really disconnected for a while because I can't see a kid. I want to give a kid a hug or, hey, how you doing? But online, what I found out, this turned out to be probably my favorite year of teaching, because I had every kid in the district who was not going to school. So I had like 12 schools of kids, the people that stayed home, and then the regular kids, the kids who went to school had another teacher during the day. So I had 12 people that never heard me sing opera, never heard me do anything, never knew about my motorcycle. So every year, I bring my wedding album in, and the first day of school, I said, I'm going to start this. I'm going to tell you all about Mr. Johnson and what I'm all about. So when you see me at the store, it's not going to be crazy. You see me at McDonald's, I eat chicken McNuggets too. So I take out my wedding album and I show them the pictures of the wedding album, and they say, who is that? And I said, that's my wife. She's white. And I said, yes, you're very observant. That's my wife.
You're very observant.
I said, can't get nothing by you guys. And I said, yes. And but kids, for the first time, they said, she's white. And I said, yes. And I said, does that matter? No. And in addition, so after I do that, and I say, I got 7 motorcycles. Here are the names of all the motorcycles. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So, and I say, and I'll give bonus questions. I say, what's the name of the blue motorcycle? Ooh, the first person that gets it, Nikita. And then they'll get a piece of chocolate or, a Hershey's Kiss. Because we're a no-nut school, no nuts because of peanut allergy. So everything has to be approved and wrapped individually. So, and so they know my motorcycles, they know my wife, they know my parents, they know my brother, they know everything about me, they know about singing opera, they know all this stuff. So when I share that with them, that I always do the first one. And then I do it with all the kids. I say, okay, I'm going to pick 5 people. Tell me something about everybody in the classroom. I need 5 things that we all have in common. And they'll say, we're all wearing clothes. I said, that counts. We're all wearing clothes. Well, we all have a Finley school shirt, or we're all wearing shoes, or we all can see the board. And then I say, okay, give me 5 differences. Some of us wear glasses. Very good. Some of us have different skin color. And the great thing about elementary kids is they see skin color purely as complexion, not any race thing associated with it. They say some of us are darker, some of us are lighter. Good. Some of us have curly hair, some of us have straight hair. Good. Some of us are wearing tennis shoes, some of us are wearing sandals, and some of us have a traditional religious garb. And I said, that's great. And I said, those differences, is that anything bad about that? And the kids are like, no, they're just different. I said, exactly. What you want to get, what I want you to get as kindergartners, these are just differences. And when we talk about different kinds of music, and I said, there is no good music, there is no bad music, there is music that we like better than others. So let's get out of good, bad, and putting those kinds of names on things. There is music that you're going to appreciate more than others. And when I'm teaching kids, it is so important, I feel, for them to see that they have a minority teacher who sings opera professionally. And I said, so all they know really is a black opera singer. So when they think of opera, they think of Mr. Johnson. And I showed them different characters. I said, I'm not the only opera singer. And I said, I'm not the only black opera singer, but it's mostly white people in this field. So when you see an opera, you will see a lot of different things, a lot of different people, but know that you as a minority, as an Asian American, as Muslim American, you can do opera too. And I said, because you see me do it every day. And I said, that is so important for kids to see somebody who looks like them do opera. And kids ask the best questions. Well, Mr. Johnson, how is it when you work with white people, you're the only person of color on the stage? Another excellent question. I said, you have to be professional at all costs. And I said, unfortunately, a lot of time people of color are seen as being late, not being prepared, not being professional, not knowing their music. And I said, and once that you get that label, it's hard to get rid of. And it's not even you. Somebody else in your class comes in and doesn't know their stuff, and I know my stuff, and then that person gets fired. Then it's like, oh, well, you see how they are. And I tell you, I said, it's a lot of stuff that comes into play that's not about music at all, but it's really about people's interpretation of you and attitudes, preconceived notions of you. So I said, I have to constantly make sure I am super on top of my music, know everything ahead of time, know my translation. So when I come in there, they say, oh, he's not like one of them. He's like one of us. And it's sad that it's like that. And I said, I work so hard as to not be the angry black man. And I said, I can be an angry man who happens to be black, but it's different than being the angry black man. And I said, even when something is totally unjust, I have to work against being the angry black man.
I have a question that I've just been thinking about the past couple minutes as I'm hearing you talk about everything that you've told your students and all the questions and just interactions in the classroom, that the schools that you taught in, the buildings at least that you taught in, must have been diverse. You mentioned Asian Americans, lighter skin, darker skin, Muslims. So you must have taught in a remarkably diverse building.
And APS is really diverse. My high school, at Garfield High School, I was there for 27 years. And it's a big difference there because at Garfield, you may have a few Muslim Americans, a few Asian Americans, but compared to my elementary school, we have 17 countries represented, 12 different languaes.
Wow.
I have a unique elementary school in the district. There are 2 schools like that because we are in an area of town where the International House is, where foreigners can go and get special services and learn how to do things in terms of business, how to fill out emergency card forms. And at my elementary school, it's really quite unique. And I said, that's just been my favorite place to be at this particular elementary school because when we have a parent meeting, we have 12 translators. And there are microphones bought in so everybody can hear whatever the person is saying in their own language. And then there's a question, our 12 translators can translate to them. So we know, and it's really remarkable. You hear somebody speaking English, but over here they're speaking Spanish, over here they're speaking Burmese, over here they're speaking Nepali, and it's really cool. And it's so unique that our school had to have report card pickup and interim pickup on a separate day, so all 12 of our translators can be there. So our interim report pickup is on a different day than the rest of the district because we have to have all the translators Wow. And that has really been an education for me, because I said kids are the best teachers. I mean, we're sharing our favorite thing about the beginning of food, and I say, okay, everybody tell me, you got to tell me 3 things. Your favorite, tell me how you like your name pronounced, and that's huge. And because so many people mispronounce names and that's okay. I said, no. If you tell me, I only see you once a week, I don't see you every day like a classroom teacher does. If I get it wrong 3 weeks in a row, it's going to be wrong for the rest of the year. So if I say your name wrong, tell me how you like it pronounced. Well, Miss So-and-so, no. How does your family say it?
Yeah.
When you're at home, how do they say it? And they say Manuel here. And how does your family say it? Manuel. Then I will say Manuel. You know, and something that small is not small at all. When you go and the parent comes for a program and they hear you say Manuel had a solo, they, oh, you said Manuel, not Manuel. I said, big difference. Small things that you need to pay attention to make sure you're being as respectful and uplifting to the kids as possible. You know, I'll see a kid 30 years old now at McDonald's, and they'll say, Mr. Johnson? And I said, yes. They go, you still at Finley? I said, yes. And I said, you're the one that always should sing opera. And then, so they go, do you still sing opera? And I say, yes, I do, of course. And then they'll sing back to me, because when I sing to them, they sing back. So I say, this is called recitative secco. It's dry. That means I'm going to ask you what you did this weekend. You sing it back in recitative. So, no, recitative is. And I said, so, but it's just those things that you do, and I do it with the staff. And I said, if you're coming in to observe me, you got to do what they do. So if I sing to you, you got to sing back. Because the kids know. You can't. No, I'm not going to sing. I said, no. There are no bad musicians. Everybody who wants to be in the choir can be in the choir. It is not an audition thing here. And I said, because when you get into middle school, you are going to have to audition, and you're not going to have that opportunity. So I said, I will never keep a kid out of a program. You're going to at least have 3 years in the choir here. And I said, well, if I can't sing a note, then I'll put you next to somebody that sings the right notes. And I will say, maybe sing a little bit softer until you get it, until you're confident. But I'm never going to not have you in the choir. And I said, that's so. And they said, well, so when I go to 7th grade, I might not get in the choir. I said, you might not, but at least you've had 3 years of choir experience here. And you will always have that. Because the biggest thing I know from adults, and I tell the kids, I said, people don't sing anymore because an elementary teacher told them they couldn't sing, and they will not sing now.
Everything you're saying is just so, it's why education and why educators are so important to communities, and access to, like, just allowing the kids to do it and allowing people. And as people get older, it gets harder to be involved. And so how can we think about giving opportunities to our students that accessibility, lessons are expensive, doing all these things are expensive, but at the same time, everything you're saying is, I had a question later about, like, it builds a healthy community. Everything you've just said is talking about how this builds a healthy community, but, what can we do to really show the community how important this type of stuff is, and also provide that access to all these students who are coming from 17 different countries doing all this different stuff? It's phenomenal what educators do every day, especially you when you see them once a week. It's wonderful.
And today I actually had breakfast with the woman who taught me how to teach, and she talked about a program in Lorraine where they're making it, everybody has dance from K through 12, and do a whole curriculum of that, because that teaches you dance coordination, music, how to keep your body healthy, how to eat healthfully, and how to take care of so many things. And when you have a problem with someone else, and artists we are just the most supportive of each other. And then if these kids know that I'm in a safe place with people who are doing the same thing, and I don't care if I'm a boy dancing, and every boy just dancing, and then we can all feel safe, we can make mistakes and have fun, and it's okay. And they're starting this in Lorraine, where they will have it, and it's a whole different curriculum. I think if we did something like that in Akron, everybody has dance, everybody has music, and it's K through 12. There are so many things that will help with the mental issues, the emotional stress, because we have people in our class we know how to handle, we know how to problem solve without mom and dad coming to rescue me. I can just go talk to Billy, and Billy may have gone through the same thing, and then or Sue may have gone through the same thing. And we have these ways to help cope with ourselves, and we are in the same community because we're all in this together. And that will take a lot of pressure off counselors, because people's hands are tied with a lot of different things. But I had a young 5th grade Asian girl who says, well, did Captain Von Trapp have to marry Maria? And I said, no, he didn't. They said, well, could Maria have married Luisa? I said, that's an excellent question. And I said, now, I don't know if Mother Maria could marry daughter Luisa because they're mother-daughter. But in real life, the actress Julie Andrews could marry the actress Charmaine Carr because that's the law here. And I said, and they're really only 60 years apart in real age or something. I said, because I'm a Sound of Music nut. But to answer your question, yes, they could have gotten married in this country because they're actresses. And love is love is love. And I said, and she was like, oh, great. That's what I wanted to know. And the whole class was like, I said, I answered the question. And I still feel, anytime you answer a question about anything, even controversial or not, your answer cannot show which side you lean towards. If you lean towards one side or another, your answer has to be about the facts, and you answered the question. And that's what I did. I answered the question and said, question.
Yeah. You know, it's remarkable. I was fortunate enough to have a dear friend of mine, her probably at the time 6-year-old son. She had my then boyfriend, Andrew, and I over to her house, and we're just sitting at the table, and her little son looks up and says, can 2 boys get married? It's like, yeah, of course. And that was the end of it.
Yes.
End of story.
Was the end of it.
and kids don't,
No, they don't care. They don't. It's just information.
It's just information, like you said. It's just information.
And I told the rest of the kids, I said, what? I said, she asked me a question, I answered the question. If you would ask it, I would have given the same answer.
Same exact answer.
The same exact, because that is the case. And I said, so, these things that, I said, so many things, we're looking for things now to separate us. We need to look at things that bring us together. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that everybody has to like the same thing? Does everybody have to like boys? Everybody has to like girls? Everybody has to like anything? No. Just like you said about the food, we all like different things. Does that make it bad or worse? No, we just like different things. Same thing with people. We need to bring each other, support each other, and bring each other together. You don't know how many people are struggling with so many things that you have no idea they're struggling with because they feel not part of the group. And at my school, I said, I'm going to always make everybody feel like we're part of the music group. We're part of the music family. And they call me Big Daddy J.
So much of what you were just saying has made me think about my experience conducting the Canton Youth Symphony, where people of very, very different views, very, very different backgrounds, how they were raised, their family structures, everything. And we all come together and we learn how to make music together. Yeah. And you know what? I'm sure some of these kids were probably told at some point that being gay, loving someone of the same sex is not how you should be. And yet here they are being conducted by someone who proudly wears a rainbow pin to rehearsal every week and a wedding ring as well. And they all know. And, nobody's left because of it. Nobody's quit. Exactly. We all show up and we all make music together. And it's a beautiful thing that music is still something that can be a place where we can all come together for the sake of it. And especially with young people.
Yes. Because like I said, young people don't have the hang-ups that old people have. They're new, they're fresh, they take everything in and they process it the way they process it. But most people just take it in and, this is that, I accept that, and let's go on to the next thing I'll accept.
You talked a lot about musicals, and what you've just said, it's one of the best moments to me in South Pacific. You've got to be taught that song.
That's in our show.
That's yeah. You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year to hate all the things that your relatives fear. You've got to be carefully taught. Is just like that song. Every time that happens in the musical, it just hits me in such a different way. Like the first time I heard the musical, I was in high school and I was playing in the pit and I was mad about it because the bassoon part. It's terrible. Yeah.
You have to play saxophone too.
No, I played bassoon. I only played.
The book didn't have saxophone.
No, the book didn't have saxophone. Thank God. But when I was older and I revisited it, I was like, that hits in such a deep way that the young people don't. And I'm afraid that you talked like the young people that we're getting to a point where people feel permission to say all these things. The young people are the time that they don't hate, and the time that they're not afraid of things is getting smaller and smaller. And music and art and the dance thing sounded really cool.
That's
that they're doing in
amazing.
Lorraine. Like
I'm
this
gonna
is,
go there and see
I
that.
mean, I'm so interested. That is so cool because of rhythm and health and musicality and just being in touch with your emotion. It's just, that's all wonderful.
And breaking down, especially like you alluded to this a little bit, that boys
can-
there's like
Yes.
this aversion to
dance.
stuff like dance,
Yeah.
or even for some boys, an aversion to singing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, just if every boy in the school's doing it, then no one's
I
going to
love
ever
that.
know that boys
Yes.
And I
aren't supposed
tried
to do
say it.
this.
I said, do you think you're less manly because you're in the choir? And they said, well, I lettered in 4 sports in high school. Lettered in 4 sports. Played basketball, baseball, tennis, and track. And I sang in every ensemble, and I played in the band, and I played in the symphonic wind ensemble. So I said, that's a bunch of mess if you don't think you're manly enough. I said, am I manly enough? And I said, and you don't have to play 4 sports. If you love doing it, do it.
Yeah.
Let that be the thing that makes you sing, not what other people. Never let anybody decide what you do. Not just in choir, in terms of how you act, how you walk, how you talk, what you eat. Make sure they're your decisions, because in the end, everything has to be about what you want.
Yeah.
And if that somebody else has a problem with it, that's their problem. And I say this all the time. They go, somebody else's opinion of me is none of my business. If they choose to come, and I will respect them more if they come and say, I have a problem with this because you this. But they talk to somebody else, and I said, that's none of my business.
Yeah.
Their opinion of me is none of my business. I know who I am. I know who I'm going to be. And I said, you guys got to learn that early.
But I am so glad that you are, or were, still are, an educator in the community that you grew up in, and also a professional performer. And because that is so important. Right now, I feel like, especially in Stark County, there's a lot of great music makers, but there's not enough musicians in the community. There's not enough people to give lessons to students. There's not enough educators. Our public school teachers are, are stretched thin,
Yes.
and just everyone. And we need more people who are amazing, talented people in our communities, giving back in these amazing, diverse ways, because that is so important. And it's like, maybe you aren't the best singer because you were talking all the time, but you're still a pretty darn good singer.
Yeah. I'm not
You've had a great career.
You've had an amazing career.
I have. I tell
And
people
I
that.
just think that that's so important to show people how valid that is as a performer, to have that. It's so important. And I'm just really,
And speaking of performing, let's pivot a bit from education and talk about your upcoming appearance as Ricky Jackson in Blind Injustice.
Yes.
This sounds like an absolutely fascinating project. So tell us all
This will
about
be
this.
the most significant and important performance of my life, already knowing going in. And the story is about 6 Cleveland area residents who were falsely imprisoned for various numbers of years. My character, Ricky Jackson, was imprisoned for 39 years by the testimony of a 13-year-old boy. Now, Ricky's black, the student was black. But right after the student said Ricky was there, he said, I lied. I went to the police and said they lied. But the police said, if you change your story now, we're going to put your parents in jail for a long time. And these are all true stories.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give any of the story away, but that's why Ricky was in prison, and he was on death row, and they gave him, they said, well, you could say this and get off of death row. And Ricky said, no, I'm not going to ever admit to something that I didn't do. And when I met him, we met 5 years ago. This was supposed to happen.
Oh, you got to meet.
Oh, yeah,
my.
he's still in Cleveland. So I met him
That's-
5 years ago, and then I saw him at another event promoting Blind Injustice with the Chagrin Arts. It's in conjunction with the Chagrin Arts, and Karen Prosser's really putting us all together, and the Ohio Innocence Project, the lawyers who started this program years ago, and it exonerated so many people. I forget, like 575
That's
years
so-
of improperly imprisoned. And in the story, it tells all the story. But like I said, I don't want to give anything. I'm just talking about my character. But talking to him is like talking to my brother. And, we talked about things, and about things you have to deal with as being black men in society. And I shared a couple things about that I dealt with the police. I said, please understand, I'm not saying anything that I've been through is what you've been through. And I said, but I want you to know that I'm not as young as you think I am. I'm closer in your age than you think I am, and I've been through a lot of similar things. And I said, this will be the most important performance of my life. And I said, I already know that. So a few weeks ago, I went to New York because it premiered 5 years ago in Cincinnati. It was sold out 3 months before it even opened.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then they did it in New Jersey a year, and then we just saw it at Lincoln Center. So my wife and I went up to Lincoln Center, got to see Ricky again and Clarence, some of the exonerees who were there. And during the whole talk beforehand, I just broke down. I couldn't stop crying, and I had to get my wife because they just start talking about the story that we're going to see. And I'd never seen it, but that just got me so emotional. I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this show because you might not have known this, but I broke down twice in Ragtime where I had to stop rehearsing because I said, and I told Joy, I said, you don't know what's going on with me in real life, how close to Coalhouse my life is right now. And whenever I go down south with my wife, as I mentioned, my wife is white, I have her put everything in her name and do everything, get the hotel, get the rental car, and everything. Because the first time I went down south to do a gig at Duke, I'm in the hotel. I'm excited. I'm down at Duke, the Research Triangle, the smartest people in the country. And I come out of my hotel. How you doing, sir? F you, N-word. Whoa, I'm coming out of the hotel. And this is the guy going into the hotel. And I was like, that's the first thing you say to me? And I said, well, we're not in Kansas anymore. I said, I'm not in Akron anymore. That was the first thing. So I said, oh, well, at least he let me know right where he stood in 2 seconds. And I said, I'd rather have that than thinking everybody's my friend and then do something underhanded like that. But that was very scary. And from that point on, I said, you know what? Babe, you're going to have to put everything in your name. And he said, why? And I said, just trust me. And I said, so we're going up to Sewanee, Tennessee for a 4th of July celebration because I had 2 roommates, and technically they had an apartment. I shared an apartment with them in New York. So 7 years I paid rent to have a room once a month to go to New York and take lessons, coachings, and see shows and everything else. So we went to visit them in Sewanee, and we stayed at a hotel. And the next morning I came in, and they have a free continental breakfast. So I'm going into scrambled eggs, and the gentleman at the desk says, oh, that's only for guests of the hotel. Oh, I said, thank you. So yes, I know. And then I go to get another scoop of eggs. They're not on my plate yet. And he says, sir, I told you that was only for guests of the hotel. And I said, sir, yes, I heard you. I'm a guest of the hotel. No, you're not. And I said, okay. I put the spoon down, put my plate down. I said, now, sir, I want you to think very carefully about the next words that come out of your mouth. And for the fact that I'm saying this to you, I'm very calm. I'm not going to be the angry black man. I said, but think very carefully about the next words that come out of your mouth. Well, I was on duty last night, and you didn't check in. I checked in, and then, of course, my wife comes in, and he sees my wife. I give her a kiss, and she sees that she's white. Because there were no... Oh. And I said, remember I told you want to think about what you're going to say next? Now I want you to get corporate on the line, and we're going to have a conversation about what you said. No. We're going to have corporate. We're going to tell them exactly what happened and why you assumed something. Even though I told you twice to be careful about what you were going to say, you still were sure that I hadn't checked in. I said, no, I didn't. My wife checks us in, and this is exactly why. So I said, well, what can I do for you? And I looked at my wife is absolutely anti-confrontational. and this happens to me so often, through my life. I'm just used to it now. So I said, well, what are you going to offer us? Well, I'll take $25. $25? That's what I ain't worth this continental breakfast. I said, so I'll take $50 off. Nope. $100 off. Nope. The first night will be free. And I looked at my wife, and she's trying to go by the scrambled eggs. She didn't want anything to do with this. And I said, baby, is that okay with you? The first night will be free. And I said, okay, that works. And he goes, well, I'll put that on, so it'll be on when you check in. No. You would take that first night off now in the next 20 minutes. So by the time we get done with our scrambled eggs, my wife better have a message on her phone that says the first night is comped. And he said, okay, I can do that. And I said, now see, sir, why did we have to go through this? And I said, no, I'm not going to call management because you saw that you made a mistake and you corrected it. I said, I'm a teacher. And I said, if I would have just gotten mad at you and just walked off, what would you have learned? Nothing. And I said, so we're teachers even when we're not in a classroom. And I said, now if I would have let that go, you would have said, well, I got that guy. And no. Now you know you better be careful the next time you get into a situation, especially when somebody says, think very carefully about the next words that come out of your mouth. You better think about the next words before you say them. Think of this situation. This could have been anybody. And I could have been the angry black man and coming all up there screaming and cussing, swinging and everything else. I said, but nope. What would that have showed you? That's a stereotype that I try horribly to avoid. And I said, so I was very calm. I just said, think about what you're going to say next. And I said, thank you, sir. I said, I will not call corporate. Were you going to call corporate? I said, no, I'm a man of my word. I will not call corporate because You dealt with the situation, you addressed it, and now you realize what you did. I said, but let that be a lesson for all of us.
Yeah.
That's just one story like that. I got a zillion of those.
I can't imagine, yeah.
Just to follow up on that, I'm curious, has your experience living as a Black man in the world gotten any noticeably better in your eyes in your lifetime? You mentioned growing up in your public school in Warren that people would call you the N-word. I'm hoping that at least things have gotten better from that. But your personal life experience, can you see progress? Do you sense that any progress has been made?
I believe there has been progress made. We have a long way to go. But I engage in these very uncomfortable conversations, and people don't want to get into them. I said, we as a country, any country who's dealt with indigenous peoples, have had horrible histories with these peoples, or brought slaves over, had horrible histories. We cannot avoid our history by not talking about it. We need to talk about these atrocities and deal with them and see how we can avoid them in the future. Right. And I said, nobody wants to talk about this stuff. Nobody wants to talk about what happened with the Native Americans, what happened with the slaves. And I said, all this history is American history. I know we say Black history. And I said, no, it's American. It's all American history. Don't give a special month. We're only going to pay about Black American history in February. No, that should be taught all the time, everything that we've done, so people know where we've come from. And I said, we're looking at, the Ukraine-Russia situation. And I said, we get a lot of fake news about different things, but I have a friend who's over there and gave me a thing to look at how Russia and Ukraine were broken up 50 years ago. And the way that the countries were split up is different, so you understand it, have a different impression about why there's so much fighting about things that were taken away and why they were taken away. And I said, we as Americans, we are the worst persons in the world about knowing our own history. And part of it is because we're afraid of it, and we want to, if we don't talk about it, it didn't exist.
So just to circle back for a sec to Blind Injustice, just tell our listeners a little bit more about the piece. Who wrote it, how it came about, all of that.
It came about with the real life stories of these different 6 individuals that we're going to portray in this story. And the composer, Scott Davenport, and I believe the conductor knew each other in college. So this was a team effort. But the cool thing about it is that 40% of the actual text of the opera is from the actual transcripts of the testimony. And that's really cool. That's why the heart. I don't know. I know I'm not going to make it all the way through the production, but I said, it's just very emotional. But when we watched it in New York, they said, you're going to be bawling the whole time. And I thought I was. I said, but I found myself being angry, more angry than anything. I said, because this is what my life is. I said, and I said, please don't take offense. But if you look at a lot of people of color, and a lot of people of color aren't necessarily crying because we're sad. I said, this is how we grew up. This is how life is for us.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like Blind Injustice is, and it has been. It's been. I forget when it got premiered.
It's 5 years. I think it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, and
the eve of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's why we didn't do it, because the pandemic happened.
Right.
And we couldn't do it.
Right.
Wow.
Like music and education and all these like art forms really can speak to social justice and social change, and has for a long time. I mean, in great social upheaval, in moments of great social upheaval, there's always been, like, music has always been kind of a leading part of that that revolution and that change. And so I'm very excited about this, that you're going to be doing this. It's one of those projects that you wish didn't exist, because the reality, we say like we do this podcast, one, because it's so educational for us and we get to know so many amazing people, but the goal of the podcast is that there's not really a need for a pod, like there's, right. Like we don't want to have, like, that's the goal. Right. And so, these types of projects and championing inclusion and accessibility and diversity, like those things are incredibly important, especially in a day and age when a lot of that is being taken away. And, proudly championing that is something that we want to be doing here at the Canton Symphony. And I just want to thank you for, all of I know you've got a lot going on. I just want to thank you again for everything.
Tell us quickly this episode is going to live on forever, but we're recording it here in March of 2025. And for those who are going to listen in the next few months, when and where can we come and see Blind Injustice if we're in this area?
A small theater in the Cleveland State Theater. I think it's called Oscult, but it's July 11th, 12th, and 13th.
The Outcult Theater.
The Outcult,
yes.
yeah.
Okay.
I've never been in there, so I didn't know.
The Outcult Theater, Playhouse Square, July 11th, 12th, and 13th, 2025. For anybody who's around,
come on to it. One quick thing, if we can set it out.
Yeah.
That I didn't think about as a performer at first until my school kid said something about it. When I'm playing the character of Figaro in Barbara Seville, I'm a jack of all trades. So being a black man in that role, I don't really deal with anybody else, any kind of romantic situation. So that's different. But if I do Figaro in Marriage of Figaro, I'm married. And I'm married very often to a white character. And I'm flirting, trying to get with another white character. And my kids said, what about that? How do people view that? And I said, you know what? I said, I'm always just thinking opera, making sure I know my Italian and everything else. I said, but that's a very good question. A lot of people still, this day and age, they can't see past the character. They only see black man and a white guy. He's kissing her and he's trying to flirt with her, and that makes people very uncomfortable. And that's what we have to really work against. I'm playing a character. My character happens to be married to this. And they go, well, you don't think anything about it because you're married to a white woman anyway. I said, exactly. But the fact that you guys noticed that and said that made me think about it differently from now on. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring up about, and one more thing. About many vocalists or people putting things forward and promoting Orchestrate Change. There are groups like Renovari Music. They're in Cleveland. Anybody you know Renovari? They're a quartet.
And
they are a group of 3 young ladies, very Christian ministry, and they go into prisons.
Oh, I do. No, I've met them. Yes. Yeah, I wanted to chat with them about. Yes, I met them. Yeah.
At least a couple of them are going to be playing in the pit for this show.
Oh, great.
And it's weird because they said, well, how'd you meet her? I said, a motorcycle. The violinist rides the same kind of motorcycle that I do. We met at the pier one time, and I said, what do you do? You're great, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm a classical violinist. Why are you saying it like that? I said, I'm a professional opera singer. No, really? Yeah. And then we started talking because we were both riding the same motorcycle.
That's so fun.
And then I'd worked with her other partner doing a Messiah. So it's just funny how motorcycles, music, and everything just brings people together. That's why I try and say, that's why I have so many motorcycles, dear, because they bring people together.
Wow. So I feel like we've already gotten about 20 answers for our final question that we always ask every guest at the end of every podcast episode. But this is a total open-ended question, and any last ideas you may have, please feel free to share at this point. How do we orchestrate change?
I think that program with the dance that Lorraine is doing, I think that's a great way to start. And I think having a late start day where every month you do a different thing, like the first Wednesday you do yoga, the second Wednesday you do maybe something like, what is it called when you self-resuscitate somebody? What's it called? You put the paddles on somebody. What's that called?
Oh, CPR? CPR training. Yeah.
Do CPR.
That's important to know, and no one really knows how to do it.
We have a defibrillator, but nobody uses it. There's a defibrillator sitting right there. And then one week, maybe doing something cooking or some kind of craft thing. And then something about the fourth one, how men and women do things differently in an educational setting. And I think that would be great. Now, it'd be me and one teacher and 40 women. I said, but, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Let's get Mars and Venus together, even though it's a big imbalance. But let's talk about things that you would never think of, how we deal with things in the classroom and out of the classroom that may help us, with mental health or physical health and eating right. Then if we're with our people that we're with the whole year for 180 days and get some time just to talk with us about something that's not necessarily about school, that would be great. And I think those conversations about implementing change, social change, especially in a building like ours, would go a long way. Mm-hmm. And I think if the system did that one day a week, you're going to have this, and this 2 hours to do not school stuff that's going to help your soul. Yeah. I think that would be great.
Wow. Brian, it has been such a pleasure having you here today. And I know I shouldn't be biased, but this was definitely one of my favorite conversations.
Good.
Really. And it's so special to have you here in person. I'm especially coming out of COVID, I really realized how valuable in-person interactions with other humans are. Yeah. And to have you at the table with us has just been amazing.
It's been great.
So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you both so much. Thank you, Canton Symphony. It's been wonderful. It's always wonderful when I come to Canton and work with you. It's great.
Thank you.
Brian Keith Johnson, operatic baritone and recently retired teacher from Akron Public Schools.
Orchestrating Change is a production of the Canton Symphony Orchestra.
Our theme music was composed by Eric Gould and performed by Derek Snyder and Tim Adams.
Our audio engineer and mixer is Nathan Maslick, with video and audio editing by Shoreline Media.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.